Welcome to the Aligned and Magnetic podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Ashley, intuitive business coach certified by the International Coaching Federation, and they call me the money mindset and manifestation queen. I take a spiritual and practical approach that's backed by neuroscience to help you make your vision a reality, but more importantly, doing it in a way that lights you the fuck up. If you're ready to create an aligned, magnetic, and profitable business so you can live a life and do the work you are absolutely in love with, you're in the right place. Get ready to hear the powerful questions and raw lessons that you need to create success your way. Thank you so much for being here. Let's dive in. Hi, loves. Welcome back to the Aligned and Magnetic podcast. Today, we have an incredible guest with us today to share some huge wins and some challenges and just like pulling back the curtain on what it takes to build a successful business, Jessica Sealey. So we actually met like years ago.
Oh my gosh.
4 years ago? 5 years ago?
Like almost
Almost 5
between
years
4
ago.
and 5. Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
I know. Isn't that crazy? And I mean, Jess, you've always been someone that in our groups, like you were just that person that you went the full distance. You, I don't know, sometimes had like those mindset and like limiting beliefs show up for sure, but you talk about this as conviction in your social media now. And I just was reflecting on this last night when I was thinking about our conversation, and I was like, yeah, that word is so true. Like you really like just had that, I don't know, energy, that motivation, that, and I don't even know if it's motivation, but there was something always that there was like no giving up, you just really always went the extra mile to get what it is that you wanted. So I'm just really excited that you are here, and I'm excited to dive into your journey because it's been a really long time since we've had a conversation.
I know. And oh my gosh, it feels so nice to hear you say those things and reflect that back to me because that is a topic that just gets me so excited because I know it's just the foundation of everything.
Okay, so I know it's been a while, but if you can take us back to the very beginning before you even started, or maybe like when you were just starting, and what was that like? Like how did Jessica Sealey come to be?
Yeah. So I was like an entrepreneur before I was a coach because I had my own copywriting business where I was writing for different people's, but like literally like plumbers websites and real estate websites and stuff like that. And I was, if you can believe this, I was like a cold email queen. I just emailed 50 people a day. Like it was insane. I would never do that now. But it comes back to what you were mentioning about conviction. Like I wanted to quit my job. That was always what I like. I just never felt like I fit into a traditional job. I was always a really good employee, but I just would stare at the clock and be miserable. I'd excuse myself to go to the bathroom 5,000 times a day. I couldn't be there. It just was hard for me. And so I really wanted to just have my own thing where I could work from my bed if I wanted to, work from wherever I wanted. And so I was determined to get out. And, um, like I feel like this is relevant into our conversation because, when we talk about conviction or we talk about resilience or determination, whatever, it's like when I would be sending those emails, I would be paying attention to how people would respond or how I could make the email better or things like that to get better response. I'd go to in-person meetings, like to set up, like kind of sales meetings, whatever. And you know what? I ended up replacing my full-time income really quick through that. I was able to quit my job. Then I realized I hated copyright. Like I hated it. So I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I went and got a job in sales, selling like cell phones, TV, internet. And it was so funny because, and again, this is a lesson on conviction because I'd never been in a sales role before, aside from being a copywriter. And I literally went into that job, never having done that before. And my my management would try to coach me on how to, be a better salesperson, close more sales. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I like wouldn't listen. I wouldn't do anything they said, but I was consistently selling significantly more than even like the best sales reps in the store. And I really think that was related back to just my energy and my integrity and my conviction. It was like my energy was magnetic when somebody would come into the store. And this is where intuition really comes into play too, because I would play off of energy. So it was like I knew how to have a conversation with somebody based on their energy, and I would sort of like lean into that. And it was like I was I'm like a sales chameleon. I'm so weird like that. And then anyway, all that to say, that translated over into my coaching business. Obviously I didn't want to work there anymore because I hate working at regular jobs. So when I started my coaching business, I was just desperate to find things. It was like I kept getting targeted for ads for like becoming a virtual assistant and living in Mexico and working wherever I wanted and all this stuff. I'm like, ooh, but then that was not the vibe for me. And then I started getting targeted for becoming a coach. And I was like, wait, I think I can do this. And I took like a freebie thing, and it was like, create your coaching offer, find your niche. And I'm like, okay. So I like did it. And then I'm like, wait, I have a business. I'm going to do this. And then that was just kind of what happened. In a few months, I had my first couple of clients who were paying me like $3,000 a piece. And then I was booked out like 6 months later.
Yeah,
So
I
that's the
remember
story.
I know. I remember being there, like watching you do that and being like, what the actual fuck? Like, how, But from my perspective, like, it sounds like you were willing to do so much more than what maybe others in our space were willing to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it's so funny that you say that, because I think that that's true, but also from like an energetic standpoint, it was
Mhm.
like I had a lot of determination, and I don't always love the word excuses because I feel like it kind of has a negative connotation, but like I feel like I just knew what I wanted, and I worked really hard to solve problems that I was being faced with. And I was like a sponge. It was like I would work through that issue and I would like immediately go and like apply it. And I still do that to this day. It's why if you've watched my evolution, it'll be like I'll try things and you'll see, and I'm like willing to embarrass myself if that's what it takes. But it's just like I will pull through every single time. And I don't know if a lot of people have that. You know what I mean? And so I and it's they can learn it though. And
Mhm.
but I think the only way that you can have that or be able to do that is when you have conviction for what it is that you're trying to do. Like I just don't think of your business will work if you don't bring that forward. And I
Mhm.
unfortunately I don't think a lot of people have conviction for what they're doing. And if they only leaned into what they already knew and weren't trying to be something they're not or pretend, or I call it like false embodiment,
Mhm.
then the conviction could show up. But that
For
I
sure.
also I don't know, I also think that it's something within you as well. And it's a very nuanced topic.
Totally. Yeah, because I think like in my business, I see a lot of my clients, for example, struggling with that mindset or like, what are other people doing? And they don't always know it, but they get caught up in this like, oh, I should try this. Like, this looks more successful over here. But it seems
Yep.
to me like you had always I mean, I think that there were times where maybe you brought stuff to the table like that on our group coaching calls,
Yep.
but you were always so like in your business, in your community, like you would ask people questions. You weren't afraid to like ask for the sale or ask why they're
Mm.
not buying, like all of these things that I think a lot of people are afraid to do.
Ooh, yeah, actually, thanks for reflecting that, because that actually is something. Oh man, because fear definitely does play a role. Like even with my clients now, it's like, I had a client call yesterday and she had a sales call And she was like, yeah, the client like said she was good to go. She wanted to do it. So I told her I'd send her a proposal. And I'm like, well, okay, cool, but also send her the contract and the invoice because she said she was in. So why would you have this like random middle step that's just going to drag out the part? Like she said she was in. Let's trust that that's true and send her all the material so that way we can just boom, let's get it done. And her face, she was like, ooh. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like it's like she said she was in. So you're right. Like whether it's, with active sales combos or in your social communities, a lot of people are really nervous to be bold. And I think that's a really big blocker for a lot of people. It's like they're afraid to take the action and they might not be aware of that, but it's like it definitely shows up when you do the work with the people or you're paying attention. But it's like there's just so much interesting stuff that comes up that affects our ability to move in the way that we need to experience the big results. It's like I've always sort of been the person my whole life when I want something, I'll just like I don't care. Like I'll just do the things and it is an edge I guess that I have. It's like my perspective, my philosophy around it is kind of like a what do I have to lose situation. It's like what people are going to make fun of me, people are going to like I don't care. Like I don't care about that. Like if something doesn't work in this one instance, okay, cool, tomorrow's a new day. It's just I've never like put too much weight on the actions that I take and I know it's all compounding and it's all adding up. Um but I no, like fear or like hesitation or nerves have never been a field I've ever played in this business. I don't, and when you said I brought mindset issues up, yeah, like to this day, I still get really like that's one of my biggest struggles, right? And so it's like almost like lifelong work with that, but it just looks different, I think, than a lot like I'll take action through the mindset drama, if that makes sense. It's like I'm quick to
Totally.
move through.
Yeah, it's like
Mm-hmm.
it comes up for you because that's what I noticed too, right? Like it's not like you don't have it because people might be looking in at like your journey. And I know you're very open with the things that
Mm-hmm.
come up for you too. So maybe they do see the full picture. But people might be looking in and like, oh, she just like doesn't have mindset issues or like fear or whatever. But actually, like
Uh-huh.
you just move through it, right? Like you had the same stuff come up as like anyone else in our group.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you said that somebody can learn conviction.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What would you say, like, if someone is allowing their mindset blocks to come to stop them, or like they're allowing fear to come stop them from taking those bigger actions? What would you say is like something they could do or practice to really lean
Yeah.
into conviction and flex that muscle or grow it?
Immediately where my brain goes, and I don't know, like this might be a little bit controversial, but and I'm glad you asked this question. I don't believe somebody can learn conviction for something they're not aligned to. And I think a lot of people think they're aligned to something and they convince themselves that that's true. But their actions tell a different story. And so I think like the lesson would be to listen to your intuition. That's where intuition really plays a big role because you can't lead. And okay, so in order to have the big results and like have I always say this like you can have like a kind of business without conviction. Like you could book a client here and there, but it's not going to be sustainable. And something to know about me is I'm all about long-term sustainability. If you can't repeat something or something doesn't become predictable, it's not sustainable, and you can't build a sustainable business with a lack of conviction. And so when we talk about like learning how to have conviction, that's a part of that is learning how to listen to your intuition and actually being honest with yourself. And the way I've always kind of described it, just like some background, like to kind of use an analogy of sorts. I was in a really bad relationship like many years ago. And throughout that whole relationship, I had this little voice in my body somewhere that was basically like, I don't know about this, but I ignored it all the time. It was like I constantly pushed it down. It was like I knew something was off, but I didn't want to listen to it because then I'd have to go into this whole new level I just wasn't ready to explore. It was scary. And so, with all that to be said, that's kind of how I think about it. It's like in this industry or business, you'll know when something's not right. Like you can feel it. And a lot of times that shows up in not knowing what to talk about, not knowing how to lead. If you have mentors, and like the example I use sometimes is like, say you have a client who claims to specialize in like content marketing, okay? But behind the scenes, like on to the public, they're talking all about like content and how content like makes them a lot of money and like do this, that, and the other thing to like improve your content strategy, whatever. But then behind the scenes, they're going to their mentors and their coaches being like, I need help with content and blah, blah, blah. I don't know what to say. It's like your false embodiment. And if like that's the case, it's like, do you really have conviction for that topic? Do you really like hold leadership within that topic? Like that's when you need to, it's not that easy. It's like that's when you need to kind of peel back the layers to figure out like what's going on here. Like, where is this lack of self-trust coming from? And if you were to really explore, and this is obviously a really easy way to describe it, it's not that easy, but it's like if we were to really explore what it is, like where it is that you actually hold conviction, like what are the conversations you genuinely love having with your clients? Like where do you feel so like powerful, confident? Like if you're in that energy, it's like you're standing a lot taller, you're feeling a lot bigger, you feel like more confident to take up a lot of space, all the things. It's like, what is it that you're talking about? And if the answer is content, then we have to explore like we probably have to hold you to a higher standard. And so that's when you can learn conviction if like your mind is hurting your ability to hold it. And it's just like, to me, that can really only be done by holding yourself to a higher standard or exploring like where there could be lack of alignment. So it's like two potential options. But I do think like if somebody does hold conviction for something that they claim to be a specialist in and that they love and all the things, but they're like not really embodying that expertise or whatever the case may be, then you need to be held to a higher standard. You need to have like kind of like I think about it like the Gordon Ramsay of online industry. It's like you need to kind of have some tough love being reflected back to you. And that's
Right.
when it gets really uncomfortable.
Totally. And I think there's a lot of that too that goes on in the industry because so many people want that time freedom, but then what I see is like a lot of people start building these businesses based on what they're seeing, which is easy to do
Mm-hmm.
because like our minds are sponges, right? And so we just like pretty much react based on or create based on what we're seeing. But so if we're not actually taking that intentional time to reflect and to like look at our own journey, then it's so easy to build something that is not true to you or not in alignment.
Oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with this conversation because this is literally like the work that I like it gives me butterflies in my tummy
Yeah.
because if more people like felt this and like actually took it seriously, there would just be so many more successful women in this world. Do you know what I mean? And it's like what you're saying about I love that it's like giving these people grace. I've been there too. It's like
Yeah.
especially when I'm going through a moment like when you talk about challenges and navigating them, like since having my a big part of my story is since having my baby, I felt really, really lost in my work and I couldn't find passion. I lost conviction for my work. And you know what? That's how it manifested is me looking at all these other people and be like, well, they're doing something right. They're doing something right. And then it was almost like I became this mirror of them unintentionally. And it's just like, well, you're just trying to grasp at anything that will work to make
Mm-hmm.
it so you still have success or you get success or wherever you're at in your journey. But it's just like, and we wonder why there's so many people like you know the content where it's like I can't scroll through Instagram without seeing like 500 of the same posts or 500 of the same offers. Well, that's actually a result from people lacking innovation because they're looking to other people as this like holy grail of being like
Right.
the example of what success is. And actually that is by the time this airs, I'm sure it'll be out, so I'll just say it, but I have like this offer that I'm coming out with. It's just like a small little offer, but it's called Concepts. And it's all about selling concepts, and that's like a really interesting, innovative way to set yourself apart naturally through conviction,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not like you're just like, I help you with your content strategy, or I help you with marketing, and saying kind of the same things that everybody else is talking about, but it's like, okay, but like how? And then
Yeah.
that's when your concept lies. And like in that concept, it's like when you ask how does somebody learn conviction, it's like, well, exploring the depth of what you claim to specialize in. It's like me, an example that I have is like, yes, I help people make more money, book more clients, have more freedom, like at the core, but how do I do it? And it's just like, it's not about, oh, opening up your little Google Doc and writing out what makes me different. It's like actually being real with yourself about like
Mm-hmm.
the areas in which you genuinely feel like super confident in. And it's like those are concepts underneath that umbrella that you can take and package up as like offers that actually give you butterflies in your stomach, because you're like, wow, like this is so good. Like it's taking micro topics from these big ideas that you have and making them into like niche little topics, which helps you convert at higher rates because it naturally shows why you're different, because you hold conviction for something smaller within something bigger, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. It's like creating your own intellectual property, like something that people can't, I mean, some people might call that a framework or like a process or something that others, you
Mm-hmm.
can't really replicate it without like copyright problems, you know?
Exactly. And it's like, I know when I release this offer called Concepts, people are going to, if I like position it really well, people are going to look at, but by the way, just on that note, conviction will help me position it
Yeah.
well, just FYI.
That's like the
Um,
foundation.
that's the foundation, yeah, of everything. But people are going to look at that and naturally be like, oh, wow, this is a perspective I've never heard before around sales. Like,
Mm-hmm.
huh, interesting. And that's where success gets really big, because you are now taking her concepts and you're sharing something that is a solution that is unique. So the way I look at it, it's like people have a problem, right? So like in my world, it's like a sales problem. They have sales problems, they're slow, they're hard, whatever. And then they have their desire, they want all these things. And then it's like, okay, you have a solution, but if the solution is just like, I help you um make better content or whatever, it's like, yeah, you and 5 million other people. But
Mm-hmm.
it's like if you break that down even further through your conviction, it's like, what do you hold conviction for around how you help? It's like people will look at that and be like, damn, like she's sharing something. I've taken all of these programs and I've invested so much in all of these things, and I've tried all of these solutions, and like it hasn't worked. Oh, here's something different that I've never heard of before. Okay, I'm gonna learn it. It's just easy.
Mm-hmm.
It makes selling easy.
Totally, totally. What would you say to someone who doesn't have that yet, who doesn't have like they
Mhm.
like don't know, they're lost in their like spaghettio like alphabet. What are they called? Alphagettis? Alphagetti soup?
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. That's what this episode should be called. Alpha.
Alphagetti soup. Yeah.
I think this comes down to a really uncomfortable conversation of embodiment. It's time to actually hold the mirror up to yourself. And okay, a way to do it is through your offer story. Why does it exist? So how did you get here? Like what made this offer actually exist in the first place? You know what I mean? And depending on your audience and the people listening, like this is a really awesome chance for you to reflect on like how this offer came to be. And if you're coming up with just surface level answers where it's like, well, it seemed like a good, like if you're just being really honest with yourself, seemed like a good way to make money. I see that people are buying this, whatever. Okay, well, you lack conviction, it's not sustainable. But if and there's a lot of different ways that could look. But if you're struggling to come up with an answer, that's something to pay attention to. You know what I mean? Like, even if your service provider listening to this, I don't know if you have service providers in your community, but it's just like there's still an offer story. There's still a story for why you decided to be in this field. It's like, why? It's, you could have a topic that the general public thinks is super mundane, but like if you allow yourself to nerd out over it, like I had a client who was a ClickUp specialist, and I'm like, girl, just go off. Like, why do you love it so much? Like, just let yourself nerd out over the topic of ClickUp and like to your community, and like let that passion shine through, and it's going to work. And I mean, it did. She was a very successful like ClickUp OBM. And so different things like that. It's like, if you're having trouble connecting to your conviction through your work, start with your offer story. Like, that's what I would say. Start with like how this offer came to be, why it exists, and how you are the living, breathing proof and evidence of the importance of this offer, and share that. Because that's where like a lot of people say, I struggle with the connection piece, I struggle with storytelling, all the thing. It's like, your requirement is to be honest with like why you care about this, how it came to be, why this work, why this topic, whatever. And then to connect with each and every day how you're a walking example of it. And if you lack that, it will be hard for you to have sustainability. It's like, for me, like something I've been learning a lot when I'm in finding myself, because I've just gone through this myself where I was really lost in the alphagetti soup, is selling what I know, not what I want to be true. So it's like that is huge too. It's like, okay, well, what's true for me? Because a lot of the time I was like trying to sell something that I wanted to be true for me and who I wanted to be. And it's like, hey, well, if I just, this actually was really helpful. If I just focus on like what I know, and where I'm at now, and I trust that that's sexy enough and people want it because like it's just true, that really helps you to get out of your head a little bit. Because it's something you're walking through each and every day. So it's like, instead of like what you want to exist. So it's like, for me, leadership, conviction, I mean, yeah, like big money, things like that. Like, these are all, I can't change what's true. Like, I can't change the fact that people pay me over 20K for my services. I can't change, like, I can't change, like, not that these are bad things, but I'm just trying to paint the picture of like, I for a while, like, I really wanted to be somebody who just like worked significantly less. And like, that is still true. Like, I do have a really spacious business model, but if I actually look at that topic itself, it's like, what am I like, not fabricating, but maybe like romanticizing and what I want to be true and what's actually true. And it's like focused on that. So it's like, for me, the actual tangibles of a spacious business model, because of how much I charge and blah, 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 that's what's true. But I haven't mastered passive income yet. So I'm not going to teach on that. You know what I mean? So
Totally.
anyway, just things like that. It's like, what am I actually walking through each day? What is true for me already? And like, trust that that is going to be so powerful for somebody who's not there yet, but wants it.
It almost sounds like you have to just step out of like the stories in your brain and all of the mush that's going on in here, and just like look at what's really working well, instead of trying to create problems or gaps or like new solutions. And that's actually creating new solutions all the time, I feel like, is something that people get stuck in as well.
I talk about that a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not guilty whatsoever over here.
It's like I always say it in the sense of like content programs. Like I have this content out there a lot where it's like stop investing in more content solutions, like
Yeah.
stop, or
Yeah.
like sales programs or whatever. If it's just like giving your ambition like a slightly different take on the same problem that you keep investing in, like what's
Yeah.
that's doing is it's making more alphagetti soup in your brain and you're
Exactly.
getting further and further away from your conviction.
Totally.
Strategy is easy when you have conviction. You don't need more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love that. Okay, so I want to go back a little bit because we totally dove into conviction, which I absolutely love because I think that that was such a great conversation that people needed to hear.
Mhm.
But we want to know, so you have made over $1 million in revenue in your business in the last 4 years. Was that in under four
Mhm.
years?
Yeah.
Um, and so that's like a lot for a lot of people who are just starting out. That's like, wow. Or like even people who have been in this business for a while, but they're still struggling with creating something sustainable. That's like, wow, how do I do that? I know you talk about conviction, right? And you were committed to those like that, I guess what you wanted, like you had that desire and you went for it. Can you
Mhm.
take us through like what did it really take to get there to
Mhm.
build your business from the ground up?
Yeah. So I mean, and this is subjective, of course, but I'll just share my truth. So, I mean, I started with one on one. You don't have to. I've had clients start with like masterminds or groups or even courses and been successful. Like, it's fine. You don't have to do that. But I just had an offer that just made sense for me to be offering, um, and really mastered selling that and selling it consistently and practicing a lot of we call it like staying power. So it's like not making stories in your brain when you didn't get an application or a sales call booked in like a day. But it was like really just holding, not a lot of people say like holding the energy or holding the faith or holding the whatever, the energy. But I didn't even know about those kinds of things back then. Like it was more just like, I didn't know about that kind of narrative until I got further along. It was more just like, okay, I have an offer. I'm going to create content every single day, build a community. My content was really valuable. It was literally there was no narrative about giving too much away. It was like literally I gave it all away. Like I just gave it all away. And so it's ported and served and like that was literally always in my mind is like how can I help somebody receive a result today? How can I get somebody closer to the result today? Through my free content, that was it. Building a ton of community, um, leading a lot. Like, I mean, I did a lot of like free trainings, things like that. Just really showing up as the leader in my space. And again, it wasn't an issue of like comparing myself to other people back then. I don't think it was more just like, no, I have this offer, I have this like concept, and I'm just gonna like show up and sell it and talk about it and serve around it and all the things. Like it was really easy in that time period because I wasn't all in my head. And then yeah, just like selling my offer like every single day. And I did a lot of like manifesting work back then, actually. And so I would set a goal. I have a podcast episode on this. It was like my manifestation process, but it was like basically I would like set a goal each day in the morning. Like I wanted to book, I was doing sales calls back then, like X amount of sales calls by a certain date and then book one client out of that by a certain date. And then it was like how it happened. A lot of people say this and it's kind of an eye roll moment, but it's true. How it happened, I didn't really care. Like it was just like I was so intentional on those like goals. And I would just like do whatever to make it happen. So I was like serving people for free in the DMs. I was going live all the time. I was constantly linking my sales calls and my emails, like just all this stuff. And I would do like a lot of polls back then in Instagram, like asking like was this mini training helpful or have you done this thing or whatever. And then anybody who like I saw that I could support or serve, I would go in and literally help them in the DMs. And then they would ask about my one-on-one, all these things. Like there's so many ways that they came. And then this is important actually. Because I was always sold out of my one-on-one, my coach at the time was like, I think you're ready to scale. I wasn't. And it was just because I was selling out, but it was like, you should make a group program or you should make a course. And I'm like, I had no, I mean, on the topic of conviction, there was no conviction of what I wanted. It was just basically a mirror of what I'd been learning. Like it was bad. Like these programs were like almost like embarrassing. Like I hate that I received money for them because I'm like, ugh. And anyway, I'm not proud of them. And because I just did it because I thought that's what I had to do. And they're really hard to sell. I was having like 3 day sales conversations for like $300 offers. Like it was just not good. And I remember just feeling really defeated and like just not like I'm like, this is annoying. Like I've been doing so well in my business. I've been happy. It was then when I started not feeling great because it was like I was just getting so much rejection and all the things. I mean, obviously good now, like to learn that. But anyway, I remember saying to myself, I'm not ever going to release another offer that's not my one-on-one until like I absolutely love it. I remember saying that like in my with not even a year in my business. And I just waited. I like waited for the idea to come. I did like a lot of market research at the time. So I was actively trying to have it come to me. I wasn't just sitting back. But it was like until that light bulb moment came off, I wasn't going to do anything until I got my one-on-one. That's when my high ticket, high impact offer and brand was really born because I'm like, oh, a lot of people are saying this is how it came through. A lot of people were saying they wanted help with high ticket clients, like how to book high ticket clients. I'm like, wait, I've been doing that. Like I've like mastered that over and over again. And I'm like, oh, duh. I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a mastermind about this. And I'm like, oh, and I got so excited. And that whole following year, like my first launch after that, it was like a sold out launch, like 40K. I made a course around it, around those concepts. It like sold like 20 or 30 spots or something. And then I just kind of like kept branching off of that. It was like constant trickle of success around that brand. Again, it's a concept. It was like a concept of mine that I had mastered. And and then I didn't pigeonhole myself. I like created offers around like DM selling because I stopped doing sales calls at that time. I was really good at it, but it was how to book high ticket clients without ever going sales. So I really mastered and became known for that concept. And then, I allowed myself to branch out into other things. Like I was really big into intuitive selling back then. So I made programs about that. The biggest, I think, lesson here, because this is just the theme, I could go on, but this is the theme over the last like 4.5 years of my business is I guess like brand building was a big one, like mastery around certain topics. And what we were saying earlier, it's like selling what you know and not trying to sell what you like want to be good at. And then action. So it was like I'd get the idea and I would just act. Like I had a membership for a long time and I was really good at like my membership was really good and I remember at the time there was a lot of like negative talk around memberships and I was like, oh, like memberships are so good for sustainable income. Like, why wouldn't you want to explore that? Why are you shutting it down? So I made a whole master class on it. And like I just acted. I'm like, yes, let's effing go. Like, come on. Like, I'm gonna teach you about this concept because it's like, and I'm not gonna wait like that. I mean, and that's kind of the theme. It was like I'm just gonna like create this and start selling it and give you the information, tell you why it's important, tell you you should take it seriously. Like, let's do it. And that's been kind of the biggest thing. It's like when I fall in love with a concept, I act, I don't wait. So, and I
That.
mean, that's been the theme of my entire business.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, I think I remember in human design, you're a generator, right? So
Hmm.
I'm just like seeing this kind of theme of like, you're just observing what's going on and you're responding. You're creating like new things
Yeah.
over here, like engaging with your audience over here, and also that big piece around intuition and like waiting for the right time. And I think that a lot of people, I don't know if it's like that they try to rush it or they're just like kind of lost in like looking at what everyone else is doing, but they kind of end up turning in circles. And I remember this happening to me. Like I went down a rabbit hole because my coach was like, oh, you should like niche over here because of that one conversation you had with this person. And then I realized I was like, helping someone like people with, like a mental health issue. And I was like, that's not it. So
Ooh, yeah.
yeah, I think just I think the overall theme is like what I'm hearing is you're just in your business, right? You're focusing on the people that you're serving and staying true to who you are, like what your expertise is, creating those concepts, which I love that idea. And I love that concept, the concept of concepts.
I know. Yeah, it's like I mean another concept is whims. So it's like I don't think that you should sell something just because you like randomly had a thought, but like
Totally.
because you want to respect people's investments, but
Yeah.
like if you're like, oh my gosh, this is like a really this is a topic with a lot of depth that I like talk a lot about with my clients or like I
Mm-hmm.
do for myself or whatever. And you're like, oh my God, this would be like such a good course or such a good class. Like I have so much to say on this topic because I know so much about it. Then I don't think it's a problem to um lean into those whims
Mm-hmm.
and take action around them. It's like I think a lot of people think they have to go through these like insane launch cycles or like have everything perfectly mapped out before starting to like put something together or sell it. It's like you can just act. Of course, like the bigger programs and stuff or the bigger offers that people sell, yeah, it might be a little bit different, but it's like even then when you talk about when people are really in their heads, it's like really lean in then to your offer story and like why that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then just get to work,
Totally.
honestly.
Yeah, take the action, stop staying stuck in your
Hmm.
head.
Yeah.
I love all that. So you've transitioned recently. I know you mentioned like you kind of went through this whole um just a period where you weren't in your conviction, like you didn't know
Yeah.
really, or you were like looking outside of yourself for answers. So you're kind of moving into this slow living mama concept. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Basically, that is a part of I think like an ultimate desire. So in my time of really trying to figure myself out, I mentioned this earlier on the podcast. This is good because it kind of gives me a chance to sort of set everything straight. So like I'm going to use this podcast for that. Um basically I had realized in losing my conviction and trying to figure myself out, like I was really like I'm a happiness chaser. I'll do anything to try and find happiness, like truly. And I had realized what my values were and that I wasn't really like leaning into my values. And a big
Mm,
part of that slow living mama concept really came from my idea that what I ultimately want is to just be with my family. To I love like when I have the space in my day to like cook a meal for my family or like sit in the backyard and read a book or like in the summer like tend to my garden or just like watch a show and just not constantly be on or have my wheels turning in my brain all the time. Like a big philosophy that I hold is you just don't need to be your business. Like, yes, you are the face of your business, you're a personal brand, all the things, but it's just like there are people out there and they're not wrong. It's just like that's their conviction. Is they almost like preach this message that it's like if you love your business so much you shouldn't need a break from it or like you are your
mm,
business, it's like you become your brand, like all this stuff. And I just don't buy into that because I really started this business to have a more spacious lifestyle, free from restrictions of any sort. And that's where that really came through. But in because I mentioned like I take action a lot of times before I even am clear on like what I want. I just try to figure myself out. Like action brings a lot of clarity for me. If you'll notice, I haven't really been posting on that account. Just because I'm like, I took action and then all of a sudden now my head is over here. I'm very multi-passionate.
Totally.
And so something that came through is like, that is an extension of my overall brand, but it's not the brand. And so, I had a lot almost like shame because I'm like, oh, I like made this big announcement and now everybody's like, oh, you're leaning into this. And I'm like, I am, but I'm not. And I'm like, it's just me. I'm trying to figure out myself out, man. Like it's been a journey
Yeah.
but it is important to me because it is an extension of it. Same with like helping new moms in their business. Like that's an extension of it. Like, but there's meaning to these elements. But to have that be my whole brand identity, I felt stifled like really fast. I'm like, I can't because there's so many pieces that I care about and that I love. And that's why this topic of conviction really came through because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have conviction for the areas in which you're teaching or you're showing up or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's a fraction of it. I hold conviction for it as a piece of it. Same with like high ticket sales. I don't want to be known as just the high ticket sales queen or whatever I was known for years because that's not all of me.
Mm-hmm.
I have so many elements of why I am here, and but the biggest piece is spaciousness, being free from like restrictions, enjoying a life that you really love through your business. Like that is the big umbrella, but it's like there's so many pieces. And I think I was just desperately trying to find myself and
Mm-hmm.
find my path. And that was a part of that journey. I can honestly say I've like figured it out, which is so like I felt light for like so long now. Thank the Lord.
Yeah. And figured it out for now too, right? Because I don't know about you, but I feel like every time we go through something where we're kind of feeling lost and then we're like, oh my God, this is it, right? But there's a
Yeah.
big part of it that's like remaining unattached. Like it's, yes, go in it with full conviction. And also, like, our journey is meant to transform. And like,
Yes.
inevitably,
Let
I'm sure
yourself
there's going to
evolve.
be, yeah, there's probably going to be something that comes up in, the next, who knows how long. But I think, I don't know, for me, it's been really helpful in taking the pressure off to really just
Yeah.
think into the journey and not put so much pressure around like having it figured out and having it right. And I feel like I've seen that in your brand as well.
Yeah, I think I love that because I think like a big thing that I have learned through this process has been your values. They could change, but like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them will stay pretty grounded. And what I've learned and had the permission to do, and I've been investing in a lot of like just stuff that really helps me grow as a person and expand my mind and all these really cool things. Like I've just learned I don't need to put myself in a box. Like it's so funny because when you lose your conviction and you're trying so hard to find solutions,
Mm-hmm.
you get really outside of yourself. And sometimes it's like you're just desperately seeking the thing that's going to like make it easier for you. And I did that a lot over the past couple years and really lost myself even further through that. But like what I've really learned is like you can have like these values and be known for your values, but then you can then like that can be like kind of the overall theme of your brand because
Mm-hmm.
it's just true. But then it's just like the how of all of it can be very different. Like you
Yeah.
don't need to just niche yourself into the slow living movement, or you don't need to niche yourself into high ticket sales or intuition or all of these different places. Like you don't need to just be known for that one thing forever. It can evolve. And it's so funny, it's full circle because that's what I was doing when my business was scaling really fast. And I
Totally.
never even like thought of the concept of niching into one little thing. It was like
Yeah.
I went into high ticket sales, then I went into DM sales, then I went into intuitive. I was just following what I knew, and I just never made it a problem
Yeah. Yeah.
until I felt really lost.
Yeah, totally. I love that you share that. And it's so true. Like, it's so much, I mean, for me, I love building a personal brand because it almost gives you so much freedom to be able to
Yeah.
like have all of those different things because we're multifaceted. So niching to me never really made sense or worked for me. So I just love that you just follow, like what's true
Yeah.
for you. And I think it's so much easier than trying to like mentally figure out something that just, I know people get so frustrated and overwhelmed
Yeah.
with it. So it's just such a like
Yeah.
laid back approach to business.
Yeah. I love that. I love it.
Well, it has been such a pleasure. I know we are just coming up on the hour here, so I want to be mindful of your time and thank you for coming and sharing your journey. I had such a great time chatting with you. So,
Thank you so
yeah.
much.
Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast today. If you like what you heard, I would love it if you left a review. If you like my vibe, come and hang with me in my Facebook or Telegram group. I'll drop the link to my email list below where you can get instant access. Make sure you check the show notes for any other links that I mentioned today. And until next time, I'm sending you waves of abundance.